I think this was meant for someone else. She placed the envelope on his desk, flat, centered, like rejoining something that had never belonged to her. Emeka Osi looked up from his chair. The chair that cost more than most people in that building earned in 3 months. It wasn't, he said. Then there has been a misunderstanding. Her voice was completely calm. No trembling, no apology hiding inside the words. He would tell himself later that what he felt in that moment was curiosity. He was wrong. What he felt was the beginning of the most expensive lesson of his life. To understand what Adaeze's refusal cost her, you first have to understand who Emeka Osi actually was inside that building. Not the version on the magazine covers, the real one. He had grown up in Enugu, second son of a civil servant father who died when Emeka was 16. What that death left behind was a quiet, capable mother, 3 children, and the specific kind of poverty. Emeka had looked at that loss at 16 years old and made a decision in some quiet, unannounced place inside himself. Never again. He put himself through university on contracts, not scholarships, contracts. He found things people needed done and positioned himself as the one who would do them. By 32, he had his first office. By 37, his first acquisition. By 44, Ose Holdings had 14 companies, 400 employees, and the kind of institutional weight that meant his name moved before he entered a room. He had also developed over those same 15 years the specific blind spot of powerful men who have never been told no by anything they truly wanted. There had been women before, not many, but enough, always handled with the same quiet assumption he had brought that cream envelope. Most had opened it. 2 had not, but both of those refusals had come wrapped in apology, in the slightly lowered posture of women calculating what a no might cost them professionally. Adaeze had not apologized, had not calculated, had placed the envelope back on his desk with the flat precision of someone returning a wrong delivery and explained with complete professional courtesy exactly what she was and was not available for. And then she left. He sat at his desk for 4 full minutes after that door closed. His tea went cold. His PA knocked twice. He did not answer. He was thinking about the way she had set that envelope down. Flat. His wife Chidima called at 6:30 that evening the way she called every evening. He answered. He told her work was busy. He told her he missed her. He asked about their daughters. Not all of it was the whole truth. And the distance between those 2 things was the crack in the foundation that nobody had noticed yet. He did not send another envelope. He also did not call her in, did not arrange for her contract to be quietly threatened. Instead, he read her report, the full structural analysis she had submitted on the Abuja Bridge tender, 63 pages. He read every single one on a Sunday morning, which was not something Emeka Osi did with documents produced below director level. His chief of staff, who received the request to send it to his personal tablet, asked the PA to confirm the name twice. Adaeze Choko, structural analyst, grade 7. The report was exceptional. Not good, exceptional. She had identified a load distribution error in the original engineering proposal that 2 senior engineers had reviewed and missed completely. He approved her for project lead on Monday morning, 3 grades above what she had applied for. No interview, no committee. She came to his office that afternoon. She looked at the letter, then at him. Her face was not the face of a flattered woman. It was the face of a woman running a precise calculation. "Is this connected to the envelope?" she asked directly. He held her eyes. "It's connected to page 31, the load variance calculation. I want to know how you found what 2 senior engineers missed." "I started from the raw data, not from what the senior engineers had already looked at, from the beginning." He nodded slowly. "Take the position, because you earned it, nothing else." She was almost at the door when he said, "Your recommendation prevented a significant structural failure. You should know that." She turned back. Something moved across her face. Not pride exactly, recognition. The quiet acknowledgement of a woman who has done serious work and been seen for it clearly, possibly for the first time by someone with authority to name what it was worth. "Thank you," she said, and left. The project meeting started in October. Adaeze ran them the way she ran everything, prepared, direct, unimpressed by seniority when seniority was wrong.
There was a morning she corrected the lead contractor's calculations in front of 6 people, including 2 men who had been in the industry longer than she had been alive, and she did it without cruelty and without any need for the room to notice her doing it. She simply needed the numbers to be right, because lives eventually depended on numbers being right. Emeka attended 3 of those meetings when he had no structural reason to attend any of them. His chief of staff noted it and said nothing. Then one evening in November, the rest of the team had gone. Adaeze was still at the long project table with elevation drawings spread out in front of her. She heard the door. She did not look up immediately. When she did, he was standing at the other end of the table with 2 cups of tea, looking slightly uncertain in a way that did not match anything else about him. "You haven't eaten," he said. "The deadline is Thursday. It's Monday." He set 1 cup at the far end of the table, a careful distance. "Sit with me for a few minutes." She looked at the cup, then at him. "What are you doing, Emeka?" "Drinking tea." She studied him for a moment. Then she sat. "Why structural engineering?" he asked. She glanced up. It was not the question she expected. "My father's house had a crack in the foundation when I was 8. The builder said it was cosmetic. I knew it wasn't. I didn't have the words for it yet, but I knew." A pause. "The house stood for 4 more years. Then part of the back wall collapsed. Nobody was home. But my younger sister had been sitting in that room 20 minutes before it came down. They talked until 9 p.m. about the project, about engineering, about Enugu and Anambra, about small things and large ones. That first 9 p.m. was the beginning of something neither of them had planned. On the drive home that night, Emeka sat in the back of his car and looked at the city moving past the window and felt something he had not felt in years. Not satisfaction, not the familiar weight of acquisition, something lighter than that and more destabilizing. He felt genuinely interested in a person. At home, Chidima had served him dinner. She sat across from him while he ate, telling him about their younger daughter's school play, laughing at something the teacher had said. He looked at this woman who had been beside him since Enugu, who had answered calls from their apartment in the early years, who had believed in him when there was nothing yet to believe in. He did not tell her about 9 p.m. And the wall he had been quietly building between his 2 rooms got 1 layer thicker. December arrived and brought with it the kind of harmattan cold that makes Lagos feel unfamiliar to itself. The city quieter, the air carrying that dry, dusty quality that settles on everything and reminds you that comfort is seasonal. They had dinner for the first time on a Wednesday evening in the 2nd week of December. Not planned exactly, the project review had run late, the team had dispersed, and he had appeared at the door of the conference room where she was still packing her drawings and said simply, "Have you eaten?" She looked at him for a long moment. "I will choose the restaurant," she said. "All right." She chose a quiet place in Surulere. No white tablecloths, no wine list the size of a magazine, just good food and low lighting and the kind of unhurried service that does not perform itself. He looked around when they arrived with a brief, unguarded expression of a man in a place he would never have chosen, and finding, to his own surprise, that he did not mind. She ordered without consulting him. He noted this. "You are not going to ask what I want," he said. "You said all right. That means I choose." He looked at her. Something pulled at the corner of his mouth. Fair. The food came. They talked. At first, about the project, because that was the safe ground they both knew how to stand on. Then about other things. About his early years in Enugu, which he did not often speak of with people who knew him as the man with the magazine covers. About her sister, the one who had been in the room 20 minutes before the wall came down, who was now an architect in Port Harcourt, who called Adaeze every Sunday, who had named her first daughter after their mother. She became an architect because of the same thing. They had dinner again in January. Same restaurant. She ordered again. He let her. The conversations had deepened by then the way conversations do between two people who have stopped performing and started simply speaking. He told her things about the early company years that he had not said aloud to anyone in a long time. She told him about the federal infrastructure project she had been approached about the road corridor in the north that needed the kind of analysis nobody had bothered to commission properly, about what it meant to her to put her name on work that would still be standing when she was gone. Then she asked him, the way she asked everything, directly, without softening the edges of it. Is there a woman in your life, Emeka? They had moved past Mr. Adaeze somewhere in December. He did not lie. He also did not tell the truth. He said, my personal life is complicated. She held his eyes for a long moment. Complicated how? There are things I need to resolve. He said it with the quiet steadiness of a man who believed in that moment that he was describing something real. I'm working through them. She was quiet for a long time. The restaurant moved around them. Cutlery, low voices, the sound of a normal Friday evening that had no idea what was sitting at this particular table. I am not an option, Emeka, she said finally. I am not something you experience between the things you are resolving. I told you this from the very beginning. Chidinma was in Abuja that January. Their older daughter had started university there. She had extended a visit to help her settle in. She called Emeka every evening. He answered every time. He told her the company was busy. He told her he missed her. He asked about their daughter's curtains, her new security door, whether she had found a good market near the campus. He loved his wife. That is the difficult and necessary thing to say. He also had feelings for Adaeze that had grown past anything he had expected or planned. And he was living inside both of these truths simultaneously in separate rooms, with a wall he had convinced himself was permanent. That is not love. That is not complexity. That is a man choosing his own comfort over the full humanity of two women who deserved the complete truth. Two things came in February. The first was the contract award. Adaeze Holdings won the Abuja Bridge tender. Adaeze's analysis was cited specifically in the award letter. Her name in black ink in an official government document attached to work that would stand for 50 years. Emeka stood at the front of the boardroom that evening for the small celebration the company held and looked across the room at Adaeze, who was standing near the window with a glass of water, not champagne, talking to two of her engineers. She was laughing at something one of them had said, genuinely, the kind that reaches the eyes and doesn't know it's being watched. He stood at the front of the room with his champagne and felt something move through his chest that he could not organize into anything manageable. It was love, not interest, not the familiar, comfortable warmth of a long marriage. Two things came in February. The second was Chidinma. She came back from Abuja on a Saturday. Emeka had not expected her until Sunday. She had wanted to surprise him. She had his favorite pepper soup from the restaurant near the Abuja house packed in a cooler bag. She was thinking about his face when he lifted the lid. She was already smiling on the drive from the airport. She found his phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked. She picked it up to move it out of the way. The screen was open. She read 3 messages. That was all it took. She set the phone down, flat, centered. The movement of a woman who has just been shown something that has reorganized every room inside her. She called her sister. 3 words. He has someone. Her sister said, "Come here." She packed a bag. She set the pepper soup on the stove. She left before he came home. Emeka came home to a full pot and an empty house. He stood in the kitchen for a long time looking at the cooler bag still on the counter, understanding the full mathematics of it. He called her. She did not answer. He called her sister. She picked up on the second ring. "She's here," the sister said. "She is safe. Do not come tonight." You had a whole woman who worked beside you from nothing and believed in you before there was anything to believe in, and you did this. The line went dead. He sat with the phone in his hand. 2 losses, 2 directions, 1 single source. Himself. Chidima took 3 weeks. Then she came back. Not to him, to the house. She moved through each room with the quiet, methodical attention of a woman assessing damage to a structure she built with her own hands. She stood in the doorway of her younger daughter's bedroom and looked at the drawing still taped to the wardrobe. 7 years old, her daughter's handwriting spelling out "My family" in crooked capital letters beneath 4 stick figures holding hands. She stood there for a long time. Then she called a lawyer. She closed the door. Not loudly, not with fury, just a quiet, final click. The sound of a decision made by a woman who knows exactly what she is closing and why. Adaeze resigned on a Monday. A clean, professional letter. 2 weeks' notice. She trained her replacement with the same thorough precision she brought to everything. She packed her desk on a Friday evening when the floor was quiet. Her colleague Bisi stopped her at the lift. "Where will you go?" "A federal infrastructure firm in Abuja approached me 3 months ago. I've been considering it." A small pause. "Now feels like the right time." "He didn't deserve you," Bisi said quietly. Adaeze was silent for a moment. Something moved through her face. Not grief exactly, not anger. The expression of a woman holding the full complexity of something that cost her and refusing to reduce it to something simpler than it actually was.
"No," she said. "He didn't." She stepped into the lift. "But I also let myself hope just slightly in the quietest room of myself." Emeka did not collapse publicly. That was not the kind of man he was. He came to work, he ran his meetings, he signed off on project documents. He did what needed to be done with the contained efficiency of a man who has spent a lifetime performing function regardless of what is happening underneath. But the office changed around him the way offices do when something shifts at the top. People sensed it before they knew it. 2 senior project directors resigned within the same quarter, separately, for different stated reasons. His chief of staff set a folder on his desk one evening in March and said before leaving, "The Abuja Bridge project is fully on schedule. The new project lead requested to keep Adaeze's filing system intact. He said it was the cleanest project documentation he had seen in 20 years of work." Emeka sat with that for a long time after the door closed. Clean documentation. Precise, exactly what it needed to be, nothing more and nothing less. Produced by a woman who had told him from the very first moment exactly who she was, who had set an envelope on his desk and explained with complete professional calm what she was and was not available for, and who had been right about herself from the beginning and had only been wrong about one thing. She had hoped, just slightly, that he was a different kind of man than the one he turned out to be. He had held 2 genuinely rare things in his hands: a woman who had loved him faithfully through 15 years of building something from nothing, and a woman of such uncommon character and clarity that his entire company was still running more efficiently from the traces she left behind. Because he had spent 15 years building a company and had never once applied the same discipline to building himself. He sat in his office on a March evening with his 2 magazine covers and understood with the full, unglamorous weight of it that you can put your name on a building and still be a man with no foundation. Adaeze moved to Abuja in April. A flat near the Federal Secretariat with a view she liked, a federal road corridor project that would take 3 years and carry her name in the official tender documents.
She called her mother on Sunday evenings. She cooked on Saturdays. She did not close herself off. That is the important thing to understand about who she was. She was not hardened by what happened. She was clarified. There is a difference between those two things, and it matters. She had always known her worth. Now she knew it with the additional weight of having been tested against someone who did not share it, and having come through with her name clean and her work intact and her foundation uncracked. Chidinma returned to accounting. She was sharp, had always been sharp, and discovered with the quiet satisfaction of a woman reclaiming something she had set aside, that the ability she had pointed entirely at Emeka's world for 15 years had not diminished by a single degree. She rose within a year. Her daughters watched her move through the rebuilding and learned something that no classroom could have taught them: that a woman can lose the life she built around someone else and find underneath it the life she was before he arrived. Intact, waiting, hers. Emeka settled Chidinma's terms without contest. He did not fight. He worked. He kept the company running. He honored every contract. In the evenings, he sat in the office that had once felt like the clearest evidence of who he was and understood it now for what it had always been. Evidence of what he could build when he paid attention. A reminder of what he lost when he didn't. There is a type of woman the world does not always know how to name. She does not shout her worth. She does not perform her dignity for an audience. She does not negotiate with men who have already decided what she is. She simply knows. She places the envelope back on the desk, flat and centered, explains what she is available for, and walks out without looking back. The world will send men towards her who mistake her stillness for availability, who read her clarity as a challenge rather than a boundary, who believe that everything eventually is within reach. And sometimes, in the quietest room of her own humanity, she will feel something for one of them in spite of everything she knows. That is not weakness. That is what it costs to be a full human being rather than a principle. But the woman who knows herself will not bend into something smaller to keep a man who cannot rise to meet her. She will do what Adaeze did. She will place the truth between them, flat and centered, and if he cannot receive it, she will walk away. And that walk, unhurried, with her walk intact, and her name clean in every document she ever touched, is the ending she was always entitled to. If this story reached something real inside you today, share it with a woman in your life who needs to be reminded of what she's worth, and drop the words "clean records" in the comments, because that is exactly what Adaeze left behind everywhere she went. Clean records, and a foundation nobody could question. There is a story on your screen right now. Another woman, another choice, another kind of strength that refused to be less than it was. Click it. You will not regret staying.